Don't forget to head over to the website, elliottmarshall.com, where you can get both of my free tools. One, how to start your day like a champion, my morning routine that I use every single day to wake up, get going, be productive, and deal with problems skillfully and well. Secondly, you can get the Mount Domination video instructional, short instruction on how to dominate from the mounted position in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Head over to the website, elliottmarshall.com. Get your free tools. Check them out. What's up, guys? This is former UFC fighter Elliott Marshall, and you are listening to The Blueprint. I believe that there's a blueprint of how the most successful people structure their lives. They don't all do it the same. They don't all do the same things. And on this podcast, you're going to hear inspirations, motivations, and stories about how they go through their life. These stories will give you clues and tricks of exactly how you can discover your passion, find your power, and then go give your purpose to the world. Thank you so much for listening. Let's jump into this week's episode. This episode of the podcast is with Grant Baldwin. Grant Baldwin is first a youth pastor, then a speaker, still a speaker, and now runs a speaking business where he helps other speakers learn how to book themselves and just build their brands in the speaking industry. Obviously, I'm interested because I'm in the speaking industry, so it was a great talk. Great to hear how he moved through different stages of his life and kept the ball moving at each stage. So without further ado, here we go. Grant Baldwin. Grant, my man, how are you?
Doing quite well. Let's get into this. This is going to be fun.
Why are you quite well? Tell me.
Well, let's see here. It's a beautiful Wednesday morning here in Middle Tennessee, where I'm at in the Nashville area. Life is good. Family's good. Business is good. Just living the dream, man.
And nobody wants to hear the complaining, do they?
Nobody wants to hear that. Yeah. Like the reality is like everybody's like I get grief from my wife, from my mom, because I'm a pretty optimistic person. And I know like nobody has a perfect life. My life is certainly far from perfect, but the idea of just like griping, complaining, whining about these things is just like, you can't do anything about it. Let me give an example. So I am deep in preparing for a final exam to get my pilot's license. So this is like a kind of a dream I thought would be fun. And so started taking flying lessons, I don't know, 7-8 months ago, something like that, take a couple lessons a week. And so literally like, as we're recording this, I was supposed to take my exam tomorrow. And it's been a minute since I've taken like a full-fledged exam. So it's just been a crap load of work, of prepping for it, of training for it, of practicing for it. And one of the things that really has a massive factor when it comes to flying a small airplane is the weather. And right now the weather for tomorrow is not looking good. And so now we're trying to like reorganize schedules and trying to figure out, okay, does this work? What if we do it this time? Okay, there's a slight window and here's what it's forecasted to be, which is kind of gray area, but we might be able to make it work. And there's a bunch of things. So like the examiner I'm working with, my instructor I'm working with, like everybody's kind of frazzled. I'm just like, man, we all want to get this done, but like we can't control the weather at the end of the day, right? And so there's a layer of stress that comes with all of that. But like what's the point in getting bent out of shape over something that you can't control, something that you can't do anything about? So just recognizing in life, like what are the things that you can do something about? What are the things that you can't control? Be well aware of those things, and the things that you can control, do something about. And the things that you can't do anything about, like get over it. It's not the end of the world. Don't let it ruin your day.
So many people do, though. So many people allow this to destroy not just their day, but their life.
Yeah.
Right.
For
like
sure.
This idea that these small, minute things, like no offense, Grant, whether you get your pilot's license or not will have like zero effect on probably your happiness, really.
1,000%.
Right?
Totally.
Your family's happiness or like the world at large. It's just something you want to do.
Totally. Absolutely.
Which is great. Amazing. Do your thing. But how people allow that to destroy their entire lives, these little events that happen to us day in and day out. Why do you think that happens to so many people?
Well, I think it's easy just to kind of look in the short term, in the here and now. And so kind of what you're talking about there is looking at a longer term perspective. So in the grand scheme of things, regardless of what happens in the next 24, 48, 72 hours, I'm not going to remember or have very little recollection of. And, fast forwarding deep into my life, like this is a very, very tiny footnote, if that, in the scheme of things. And so ultimately, like just keeping things in perspective. And so I think just in general, personally, I try to be pretty level headed on just life in general. So the highs aren't too high, the lows aren't too low. If I take my exam and I fail, it's not the end of the world. We'll take it again and we'll figure it out, and right. If I take it and I pass, awesome. But like, again, to your point, like it's not going to dramatically impact me. It's not going to change my life in any way. My life is awesome, regardless of what happens and when it happens and how this all plays out. If anything, like it makes a good story, which I also think is a good thing to optimize for. Let me give you another example. This was about a year ago. My wife and I were celebrating our 20th wedding anniversary, and we went down to St. Lucia for our anniversary, and we're down there for a week. This was in early 2022.
The road to St. Lucia, that curvy ass thing from the airport is a motherfucker.
It's no joke. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, here's what happened. So we stayed at a great resort there, had a great week. And we actually flew in a helicopter to get to the resort. So they gave us an option. They were like, hey, when you land there, you're correct. Like it's going to be like an hour road, like windy, curvy. My wife kind of gets car sick. Yeah. It's a lot. It's beautiful. Or we can give you like a 6-minute helicopter ride. And my wife is not a fan of helicopters. She'd never done one. And I was like, I'm all in. Let's sign up for that. And so day before, she's like, okay, I don't want to be on the road for an hour. I want to get to the resort. Let's do it. Let's do the helicopter. So we do that. We get there. We're there for the week. We have a great week. And this is, again, this was early 2022. So lots of still COVID restrictions that were going on internationally. I had this lingering cough all week and felt fine, but just had this lingering cough. So you got to this is at the point where you had to take a test to get back into the States. And so we take our test, didn't think anything of it. The next day, the hotel manager shows up and like, hey, can I come in and like, can you put your mask on? And you're like, geez, what's going down here? And so I had tested positive, and every country is different. And the policy for St. Lucia was that once you tested positive, you had a 7-day mandatory quarantine. And so I'm used to being able to like sweet talk my way in and out of things. And I was just like completely dumbfounded. I was like, whoa. Like, I can't go home tomorrow? Are you kidding me? Like, for real? Like, is this a joke? Like, can I retest? Like, what are my options here? And there's just like, no, like there are no options. And it wasn't like the hotel's policy. Like this is, the country's policy. The US isn't going to let me back in if I test positive. And so it was just a weird deal. So long story short, like I ended up, my wife flew home the next day. It was just a big bummer of like, oh man, we had this amazing trip and here's how it's got to end. So for the next week, they moved me to a different room and I'm stuck in that room for
you can't, it's not like you can go out and have fun.
No, you can't go to the beach. You can't, people are like, oh, you're in St. Lucia. It's like, you can't leave the room. Like you're trapped, So it was one of those things like, super bummer in the moment and at the time, but fast forward, you're like, that was just a fun story, it's just a crazy, just a crazy time we'll look back on. And so again, I think a lot of it is the perspective of, I wasn't miserable that week. Like life's still going to go on. I'm going to make a funny story out of it. Like work still continued. I got a lot done. I was gone over Valentine's. So it was FaceTime with my family, like, again, it's a bummer, but then like, it makes a good story. So
you don't even think it's just funny.
Yeah. Like in the scheme of things, like you can't let some of these things like just ruin your world or get you bent out of shape. Like it's just not that big a deal.
Did you always think like this, or was this a learned thing?
I feel like I've always been a pretty optimistic person. I'm a pretty motivated, pretty driven guy, but I feel a level of confidence. Like I can figure stuff out. We can make stuff happen, and it's not always going to go my way. It's not always going to be perfect by any stretch. But I think for the most part, I tend to feel like, hey, you keep showing up, keep putting in the work. Not every day is going to be perfect, but things, for the most part, things are going to work out.
Yeah. I'm very similar now, but I didn't always think this way. This first. So that's why I asked that question, because this was learned from me through struggle and difficulty, not thinking like that. So it's a good lesson for everyone, right? Like some people have this, and like some people are born naturally tough, and other people learn how to be not naturally tough, but tough.
Totally.
And you can both end up at the same exact spot in the level of toughness, level of mental thinking, and I'm sure that this type of thinking, one of the things we like to talk about a lot on the podcast, is everything has benefits and drawbacks.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not like this optimistic thinking just is always great for you. I'm sure it sounds like it drives your wife fucking nuts.
There are days where that happens, because she can have a bit more anxiety and stress about certain things, and it's just kind of like, babe, chill. There's nothing, you gotta be cautious in how you word those things.
But saying that to her, babe, chill, it doesn't go very well.
It cannot always fly well. But I think like just I know that sometimes my own calmness in some type of stressful situation helps her to relax and helps her to stay calm. Like, okay, he's got it, he'll figure it out. And so I know that sometimes that can, and not just again in a marriage relationship, but I know even within our company. So we've got 30 something employees, and who I'm the CEO and founder. People look to me for wisdom and direction and advice and whatever, and decision making and yada yada. And I don't have every answer. I don't know everything that we're supposed to do. And I think we're, every entrepreneur, every person's just making it up as they go, doing their best. But having a level of just steadiness, a steadfastness, of calmness I think is helpful and reassuring to other people.
Tell me about your business. I know you are a speaker in the speaking business.
Yeah.
So first, let's go about what is your business? What is the business?
Yeah. So let me go back in time, and maybe this will give some context. So in high school, I was really involved in my local church, and my youth pastor had a really big impact in my life. And I was like, I want to do that. Like, that seems like a cool career. And so that's kind of the path I was on. I went to Bible college. I was a youth pastor for a little while. Parts of it I liked, parts of it I didn't like. But one thing I really enjoyed, and I felt like I was decent at, was speaking. And speaking was one of those things that I was doing on a regular basis to students, would speak every so often on the weekend in big church. And I just felt like, man, this is a ton of fun. I really enjoy this. Would love to do more of this. And so I was like, I would love to do more, but I just didn't know, how does this work? How does the speaking industry, it feels like this mysterious black box where I wasn't sure, like, who hires speakers and what do you speak about? And like, how much you charge, and like, how does this work? And so this was 17, 18 years ago. There weren't like courses or trainings or coaches or books or podcasts or resources on the speaking industry and the speaking business. And so I found myself just like emailing other speakers, harassing other speakers, stalking other speakers, can I pick your brain type stuff, and learned a few things here and there. And eventually got to a point where I was booking a couple gigs, and that turned into some more gigs and more gigs. And eventually got to a point where I was doing about 60, 70 paid speaking gigs a year all over primarily the US. And it was great. I had a blast. And I got to a point where then people were asking me those same questions I was asking. How do I find gigs? And what do I speak about? And who hires speakers? And how much do you charge? And on the list goes. How do I get started? And so about 7 years ago, I started a training company called the Speaker Lab. And the Speaker Lab is basically what I wish I had when I got started. So it's a training and coaching company teaching the business of speaking and how do you find and book paid speaking engagement. So yeah, that's what we do. We work with speakers. We're a completely virtual company. We work with speakers in every US state in 49 different countries around the world. Speakers at all different levels and experiences and ages and stages of life and where they're at in their journey. But there's a lot of people who are interested in speaking, and some people who want to say, I want to do 60, 70, 100 gigs a year. I want to go all in on speaking. And other people are like, I like speaking, but I got something else going on, and I'd love to do 5 or 10 gigs a year. And I've done some gigs, and maybe I've been paid, but maybe I've done some free stuff, but I'd love to figure out how to get paid, or I'd love to do more gigs. And there's a lot of people interested in speaking, but there's just not a lot of great resources on, but how do you actually book gigs? Like, how does that work? And so that's the core of what we do today.
I love it. I love speaking. It's one of my favorite things.
It's a ton of fun. It's a great way to make a living. It's a great way to make an income. You get to travel. Like there's a lot of big benefits with being a speaker. Yeah, it's
very rewarding for me. It's very rewarding for me to touch the lives of people in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think like every viewer, listener, we could all, if we'd stop for a second, we could all think about some speaker who's impacted our life. Mm-hmm. And that could be, a youth pastor, a professor, a friend. It could be you were at some conference. I'll give an example. This was probably 15 years ago or something. I was at a conference. We were living in Missouri at the time. I was at a conference here that coincidentally happened to be in Nashville, where we live now. And I was debating whether or not, at the time, I was a youth pastor at the time, debating whether or not to, if I wanted to pursue this speaking career path in this business. I wasn't even entirely sure what that looked like. And I was at this conference specifically for youth pastors, and I was in this workshop. I don't even remember who the speaker was, and I don't remember what he was talking about, but there was one line that he said that was just this aha eureka moment for me. And I vividly remember like leaving that session and calling my wife like, hey, we're going to go all in on the speaking thing. I don't know what that means. I don't know how this is going to play out. But like that one thing and again, I couldn't even tell you who that speaker was, but that one thing that he said like really profoundly impacted. Well, he talked about like, this idea that like, if you don't enjoy at least 80% of what you're doing, you should find something else. And I remember feeling like, there's no such thing as like this perfect career, perfect dream. But I knew at the time, like I was frustrated, stressed, frazzled with what I was doing. My wife was pregnant with our first child. Nothing like bringing a kid into the world that causes you to question everything and figuring out what you want to do when you grow up. And so, that one line, I just remember thinking like, all right, well then maybe I need to find something different. And again, like, I don't even remember who the speaker was or what the context of was of what they were talking about. But just that one thing that he said, like really profoundly, changed the trajectory of my life, my business, my career. And so I think about, again, zoom back out, every single one of us, we've had that experience where we've been on the receiving end of some speaker, teacher, someone who said something that just changed us. And maybe it was in a group setting and maybe they wouldn't even remember what they had said or where it was or anything like that. But something they said just resonated and clicked with you. So being able to help other speakers make that kind of impact in others has a real multiplying, rippling effect there. Because now, like, I think about with that one speaker, what they said, how it changed my life, but then also the trickle down effect of how that has then changed my wife, my kids, my family, the people I've spoke to, the speakers I've worked with. And so again, it just has this multiplying impact that speaking allows. It's really, really profound.
Speaking is like teaching. And that's what I do for a living is I teach martial arts, right? And it's crazy the impact you have. Mm-hmm. When you teach, right? Now I'm putting speaking in that teaching. You get these messages and you get this effect of the world and in the world that you just didn't know that you could have.
Yeah.
And sometimes again, on this benefits and drawbacks thing, and I want to ask you how you deal with it, is when you become someone who has people listen to their word, which is what speaking and teaching tends to be. Sometimes you can have a negative effect, right? Because, you're up there, or just talking with somebody randomly, not speaking, and you make a joke, you say something. How do you deal with that aspect of the speaking business and speaking profession? Is once you get good at it and people start listening to you, your word almost starts to be like the word of God to the people that you really can affect or that are really looking up to you. So how do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, it is like it's a major responsibility. Like your words carry weight, and so regardless of the event or where you are going to be speaking, your words have an impact and have influence. And so, yeah, you really got to choose your words carefully and what you're saying. And so there may be times in like one type of setting where some type of joke, if you're hanging out with your buddies, you may feel fine to throw some flippant joke out there. But like in a different context, like as a speaker on stage, like you may not be able to say that. That may not work. The other thing you got to remember as a speaker, especially if you're being hired to come speak at something, is you are representing the client that hired you. And so you are an extension of them. So just in the same way that, I come on here, I'm coming onto your platform. If I say something stupid or wrong or inappropriate or offensive or anything like that, like it reflects on you. And so whenever you are doing that from an event planner standpoint, and they're hiring a speaker and they're putting them up on a stage and they're giving them a microphone and they're paying them money and they're putting them in front of an audience. Like if a speaker does amazing, then the event planner looks like the hero. But if the speaker does a bad job or just is inappropriate or whatever they say, then the event planner looks like an idiot, right? And so you got to remember that the words that you say are reflecting on other people. And especially if you're trying to make a career out of this and you're trying to make a business out of this, like your job is not to go around and to be offensive, just to be offensive and to burn bridges with people. Like nobody wants to work with a speaker like that. So yeah,
Unless
it's absolutely something yeah, it's possible. Yeah. So ultimately, like you got to be well aware of the words that you're speaking.
For sure. What was it like building a business like this? So not just speaking for yourself, right? Like speaking for yourself is one thing, right? But hiring people, building a business. Now, in your business, do you do you actually do the booking and getting people booked, or do you just teach them how to do that for themselves? So I guess that's my first question.
Yeah, good question. So what we always say is we don't catch fish for you. We teach you how to fish. Okay. And so, yeah, we're not a bureau. We're not an agency. It's a business in a box, meaning like we're going to help you build your website. We're going to help you with your demo video. We're going to help find speaking leads specific to you. We're going to give you email scripts. We're going to give you all the tools and resources you need to be successful. But at the end of the day, you got to put in the work. And so what we always say is like, it's simple, but it's not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy. Meaning like, if you wanted to lose weight, what do you need to do? Well, I'm no like health expert or fitness expert or anything, but you need to do two things. You need to pay attention to what you eat and you need to exercise. Like that's it. It's simple, but it's not easy. If it was easy, like we'd all look sexy, but we don't. And so that means like you got to it requires work. It requires discipline. So the same thing for, working out, like if you're a martial arts instructor, like I'm going to teach you everything you possibly need to know. But you still got to show up and do the work. Like I can't do it for you. Same thing with like me preparing for this pilot exam, right? Like I know what I need to know. Like they tell you, here's the stuff you need to know. But like my examiner, my instructor can't learn it for me. Like it's simple. Here's what you got to know, man. Just you got it's pass or fail. It's really black and white, but you got to learn it. You got to put in the work. You got to do that. You got to do the reps. And so the same thing is true with speaking. Like we're going to make it dead simple for you, but at the end of the day, you still got to put in the work.
I tell my students, I can't teach you jiu-jitsu. You're going to teach yourself. I'm going to show you all the things to do, but yeah, you teach yourself a little bit. I'll show you the move. But how you apply it, that's on you because you got to figure that out for your body and your style. So yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. So now that the business, you're not going out and getting people booked. What was the growth process? What did the growth process of the business look like? When did you shift from I want to speak to I want to teach other people to speak?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I got to a point, like I said, where I was doing 60, 70 gigs a year. It was going really, really well. But at the same time, I kind of felt this restlessness and just kind of like one of the, speaking is a ton of fun. You get paid way too well to stand on a stage and run your mouth and travel around. I've seen a good chunk of the US and parts of the world that I know a lot of people may not get to see in a lifetime. And so I feel very, very fortunate in that. The nature of speaking, though, is it's a high paying manual labor job. In that, again, you get paid really well, but you got to show up and do the job. Meaning like similar to like a surgeon, a surgeon makes really, really good money, but you got to show up and do surgery. So if you take a day off, a week off, a month off, whatever, like you're not doing surgery, you ain't making money. And so the same thing is true for a speaker. And so I remember kind of getting to this point where I felt kind of this restlessness, and I was speaking at an event in Reno, Nevada, and met up with a mentor friend of mine in Lake Tahoe. And we were talking about this, and he said two things that really profoundly impacted me. So this was in 2014. He said, one is he said, you want to regularly find things where the challenge exceeds the skill set, meaning for you, when you first started doing martial arts, the challenge exceeds the skill set, right? And what happens is over time is it flips and the skill set exceeds the challenge. And so, for example, when I started speaking, I was just like, holy crap, I'm way over my head. And then eventually you got to a point where it flips and I could stand on stage in front of 1,000 people and crush it, but be on autopilot and be bored. And so you have to regularly put yourself in situations where the challenge exceeds the skill set, where you feel like you're over your head, not in an unhealthy way, not in a way where like this is going to, paralyze you or traumatize you, but like feel like, oh man, this is going to be a stretch. But I feel like this with this pilot exam, right? Like if it's just easy, then you're like, well, that's no fun. Like it's like when you beat the game, like, well, part of the fun is playing the game, but like when you beat the game, like, it's no fun anymore, right? So you want to find things where the challenge exceeds the skill set. So that really resonated with me. The second thing he said to me that really resonated is he said, Grant, I think that there are people that are like born to be speakers. And he was that guy. Like he has been speaking for as long as I've been alive. He'll perform his own eulogy. The guy is a phenomenal speaker, world class. His name is Phil Boyd. He does a lot in the education space, just an amazing speaker, an amazing human. And he said, Grant, I think that you are born to be an entrepreneur and you happen to be a really good speaker. And that just really clicked with me. That really resonated because I love entrepreneurship. I was the kid in high school who was like mowing lawns and doing anything, selling candy bars, anything I could to make a buck, shoveling snow from driveways. And so I've always kind of been entrepreneurial. And so when I found people who were asking me all the time, like, hey, I want to be a speaker. What do I do? And I was just like, dang, you're asking the same questions that I had. And I felt like I'd figured out some stuff and learned some stuff and had been like coaching and teaching a little bit of it on the side here and there. I thought like there's something here. And so that's when I made the decision of like, let's really lean into this. And it's not like for anybody that may be in a similar spot, realize like that's not on a Friday, you're going like, all right, I'm going to quit my speaking gig. And on Monday, I'm going to go all in on this thing and it's all going to work out. Like, no, like it's a gray area for a little while where you're doing a blend of both, where you are, you have one thing.
Still got to put food on the table.
Yeah, absolutely. 1,000%.
Yeah.
Like the one thing you got to keep running while you're building the second thing. And then it's just kind of a slow transition. So I still do some speaking, but not nearly as much as what I was doing before. And so my time now is spent as, CEO and leading our company. So, that advice of the challenge and the skill set was really, really impactful for me.
I love what you said, how you said it. It's so I don't know if you can see the quote behind me on my shoulder. It's the man in the arena, right? They're both saying the same thing. You have to constantly be entering the arena, right? And that's what you're saying here is you have to constantly be stepping into things that challenge you. Now, it might have challenged you in the beginning, and that can change. And then if that when that changes, you need to find something else. It could be in a very similar, you didn't really change arenas. You're still in the speaking arena, but you shifted and you're kind of playing another game now, which is healthy and good and powerful for all of us. So, how many speakers do you guys have, or how that you work with?
Yeah, I mean, we work with thousands of speakers, and so we got a variety of different resources. We've got a podcast. So if you listen to this one, you probably listen to other podcasts. So the Speaker Lab podcast, we've got 430 something episodes there. We've got a book called The Successful Speaker: 5 Steps for Booking Gigs, Building, Getting Paid, and Building Your Platform. We've got different coaching programs that are a mix of one-on-one group coaching, done with you, done for you components there. So I mean, we've worked with thousands and thousands of speakers, all, like I said, all over the world, all different ages and stages of life.
Here I am. I want to start speaking.
Yep.
I think I'm good at it. Let's say. What are some steps?
Yeah. So inside the Speaker Lab, what we teach is what we call the Speaker Success Roadmap. It makes the acronym SPEAK, SPEAK. And so maybe what we can do is I'll just walk through that at a high level and then we can bounce in wherever you want. But the S is select a problem to solve. Select a problem to solve. Now, this isn't exclusive to just speakers. This is true for any type of entrepreneurial endeavor. Okay. And there's 2 questions you got to answer here. Number 1 is who do you speak to? And number 2 is what problem do you solve for that audience? So when we talk about who you speak to, oftentimes the mistake here is that people want to go as broad and vague and big as possible. So who do I speak to? I don't know, man. I speak to humans. I speak to people. My message is for everybody. Like that doesn't work. And the same thing is true whenever I ask speakers like, okay, tell me what you speak about. And sometimes they'll say, well, what do you want me to speak about? I can speak about anything. We could talk about, business or marketing or sales or leadership or customer service or martial arts or family or sports or da. It's like, no, like that doesn't work. And so what we always say is you want to be the steakhouse and not the buffet, the steakhouse and not the buffet. Meaning if you and I are going out for a steak, then we have a choice. We could go to a buffet where steak is one of 100 things that they offer and they're all mediocre, or you could go to a steakhouse where they do one thing, but they do that one thing really, really well. So they don't do lasagna, they don't do tacos, they don't do spaghetti, they don't do cupcakes, they do steak, and that's it, full stop. And so the same thing is true with speakers, and it's counterintuitive because oftentimes, again, we think that we need to spread the net as far and wide as possible. The more things I can speak about, the more people I can speak to, the more opportunities I will have. But event planners, decision makers are not looking for a generalist. They are looking for a specialist. So the most important thing that you can do is solve one specific problem for one specific audience. So that's the S, selecting a problem to solve. The P is to prepare your talk. Prepare your talk. Be really clear on what is the solution that you are providing. Can you actually provide a solution to the problem that you've identified that audience has? And how are you going to provide that solution? It could be through a keynote or a workshop or a breakout or seminar, or it could be in person. It could be virtual. There's a lot of different ways that you could go about that, but how do you actually provide that solution? Next part is E, is to establish yourself as the expert. So 2 key marketing assets that we teach that you need. Number 1 is a website. which in this day and age, if you don't have a website, you don't exist. It's hard to take you seriously. And number two is a demo video. Now, what exactly is a demo video? I want you to think of this like a movie trailer. So before you would go see a movie, you want to see that trailer. Now, what is that trailer? They're going to take a 2-hour movie. They boil it down to 2 or 3 minutes. And within those 2 or 3 minutes, you have an idea of who's in it, what's the plot, what's the theme, what's the genre. And the goal of the demo video and the goal of the movie trailer is to make you want to see more. So you think about it from an event planner's perspective, you know, when they're looking at you, they're considering hiring you. They're not looking at you in isolation or in a vacuum. They're looking at you and 3 or 4 or 5 other speakers that they are considering. And so they don't have time to watch 30 minutes or 60 minutes of video for each person. They just need to see a couple of minutes. Maybe you're an amazing speaker. You're just not necessarily what they're looking for. You don't need to watch an entire movie to determine whether or not that's a movie you would like. Like there's amazing movies out there that I wouldn't watch. They're just not my cup of tea. There's nothing wrong with them. But the same thing is true with speakers. I don't need to see an entire thing to determine whether or not you're a fit. So just a couple of minutes there of a demo video is what event planners and decision makers are looking for. Next part of the process, A, is acquire paid speaking gigs. Acquire paid speaking gigs. Now, this is the part that people want to fast forward to. Like, dude, just tell me how to book gigs. But again, if you don't have these foundational pieces in place first, then it's really hard to book gigs. Now, when you talk about booking gigs, the mistake that speakers make here is going, okay, I got my website, I got my video, and now I just sit back and I wait for the phone to ring. And like, it just doesn't work like that. Like nobody cares. Your mom is thrilled about your new website. She's going to tell both of her friends. Nobody else cares. So at this point, we have to have a plan.
And neither one of them are hiring paid speakers.
Neither of them. Yeah, right. And at this point, we have to be much more proactive than reactive, meaning don't just put something on social media and just say, okay, I'm a speaker. If you need a speaker, let me know, like, and sit back and wait. Like that doesn't work. Now do that. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, you want to start conversations with event planners, with decision makers, identify them. Google works really, really well for this. Identifying event planners, decision makers who would be a good fit for what it is that you're doing. Again, this is why you got to be clear on who you speak to and the problem that you solve. Not only just reaching out to them, but have a system and process in place to follow up. This is a lot of what we teach when we work with our speakers on is what to say, when to say it, how to follow up, having a system in place to do that. And then the last part of the process, K, is know when to scale, meaning a lot of people who are interested in speaking are also interested in writing a book or doing a course or doing coaching or doing consulting or doing a podcast. Like all those things are great. There's nothing wrong with any of those, but something's going to come first. Something's going to come last. And so you got to be really clear about how speaking fits into the mix of what it is that you want to do. So again, I know we kind of browsed through a lot of stuff there, but that's kind of the high level overview of what we teach at the Speaker Lab in terms of how do you find and book gigs.
Man, that was almost good for just running a business.
Totally.
Like any business, right? Like what problem are you solving? Like get specific, get specific. That's called your ICA, right? Who is your ideal customer avatar? And everyone thinks that like just that S piece of it, everyone gets so scared of that, right? They get so scared of getting specific, right? I think is that what S stood for? Because I want to help everyone. Yeah, but you can't. That's one of the things is you can't help everyone. Some people are going to actually hate you, and that's okay. Yeah,
right? We understand this in other contexts. Again, like, the steakhouse buffet analogy, or I'll give you another example.
No vegetarians going to a steakhouse. They
totally. A steakhouse isn't sitting around thinking like, man, we really got to market to vegetarians. No, like they're just like, we're not for them. And that's fine. Right. There's nothing wrong with that.
I will say a little tangent. I was at a sushi restaurant a couple of years ago, maybe 5 years ago, pre-pandemic. And this lady comes in and sits at the sushi bar and has her, she has her miso soup, and then she looks at the chef behind the sushi bar and goes, man, can you clean the cutting board and the knives? Because I'm allergic to fish. And I looked at her and I wanted to be like, what the fuck are you doing here?
Yeah, like, in the wrong place.
Why would you even come here and ask them to do that? What a pain. And then go most likely write a bad review about them because they said no.
Yeah.
That is just ridiculous.
Right.
But that's when she wasn't being specific, right? Like go to a vegetarian place, go to a non-fish place. Doesn't matter. So, anyway, just a tangent
I'll give you another
restaurant thing. Yeah.
I'll give you another example here. So let's imagine that, God forbid, you had a brain issue and you had to have brain surgery. You have a choice. Like you could go to your local family medical doctor. They went to med school. They've probably performed some surgeries before. They probably know more about the brain than you or I do. Like they're a doctor. They know what they're talking about, but they've never done brain surgery. Or you could go to a brain surgeon where like day in and day out, that's all they do. Like if you got a broken arm, you don't go to them. If you got a COVID, you don't go to them. But if you got a brain issue, like that's who you go to. And again, we understand that like, I want the specialist. I want the person that's just like, no, like this is all we do. So I know like at the Speaker Lab, we help you find and book speaking gigs. Period. Like that's what we do. So if you're like, can you help me write a book? No, that's not what we do. Can you help us with our course? No, that's not what we do. Like all those things are tangential things that we could do. But as a company, we got to be really clear. It's like, no, we solve one specific problem for one specific audience. And so for us as a company, like we're eating our own dog food as well. Like we're not just telling other people, hey, this is what you do. Well, we're going to go out and try to cover a whole bunch of different topics on a whole bunch of different things. No, like we're the same thing of just staying in our lane, solving one specific problem for one specific audience.
Yeah, get good at one thing, right? Get good at one thing and then just be amazing at that. Even if you don't end up being the best in the world at it, shooting at being the best in the world at it will get you really, really far.
Yeah, absolutely.
And everyone, I say that line a lot and people get upset. Oh, why do you have to try to be the best at it? It's just you're just trying.
Yeah.
Right. Because when you try and when you get super specific and you try, you actually get really good. Right. Totally. It's inevitable. It's inevitable. But not trying to be your best is really, really hard.
Yeah. Let me piggyback on that for a second. Because I think that, one reason that our company's had some level of success is not only have we solved one specific problem for one specific audience, but like we've done that over an extended period of time. So I've been in the speaking industry myself for 17, 18 years. So it's not like, all right, I did the speaking thing for a couple of years, and then I got into an Amazon business for a couple of years, and then I did some course on something totally unrelated, and then I got into manufacturing, and then I do a lawn care business, and like there's nobody who's going like, I wonder what Grant's up to these days. Like I wonder what the flavor of the week is right now. It's like no, like he's still showing up doing the same thing, and so it just builds trust, it builds longevity, it builds people who are like, okay, that guy knows what he's talking about. That guy's been at it for a long time. He's got a strong reputation. The company has a strong reputation because they've just been showing up and putting in the work.
Why do you think that matters so much?
I think it's just too easy with like too many shiny objects to just bounce from thing to thing to thing. And it's just hard to build momentum or traction at any of those things, And so, for someone who is like, with a business or a career path and like, okay, I'm going to, let's say I'm running a marketing agency and we're going to focus on Facebook and then we're going to bounce to TikTok and now we're going to focus on Pinterest. And then also we're going to get into copywriting and all of a sudden it's just like, I don't know what you do. And you just don't have a ton of confidence. Again, go back to like the doctor brain surgeon analogy. Like the doctor's a smart person. They're a smart human being, but like if they don't know brain surgery, like I don't want them cutting me open. Think about like with your home, for example, if you got like some type of like major plumbing issue, you could hire a general handyman. They're like, yeah, I know something about plumbing. I might be able to figure it out. Or you can go to like the plumber is like, this is all I do. Like day in and day out, I fix problems like this. I've seen this 100 times and I know how to solve it. Like that's the person that I want to work with.
My friend was in construction and his whole family had been their whole life. And I can remember the one thing he told me was because we were building these bigger schools and remodeling the businesses, the buildings. And he goes, Elliot, when you hire somebody, you want them to have dirty hands and show up in work boots.
Yeah.
Because that means they do the work. They're not just hiring out the work to subcon. He's like, that's how you want them showing up because that means they know what the fuck they're doing. So super important. As we close here, I like to ask people 2 questions. And this isn't like a tooting of my horn or anything like that. So if it comes off that way, that is not the intention. It's around the ROI on time. We all have a very limited amount of time. And this podcast, it's not a massive podcast. It does okay, but it's not Jocko, it's not Grant Cardone, it's not Tim Ferriss, it's not, the pod god Joe Rogan. It probably won't move the needle for you. So you really just, it's one bald guy with a beard talking to another bald guy with a beard.
Perfect. Time well spent.
So but why is that time well spent to you? Why say yes?
Yeah. So I think this also kind of goes back to one thing we were touching on, to just finding your lane and staying in that. And so there's a lot of different things that we could do to market and promote what we do at the Speaker Lab. And the people who are interested in speaking are everywhere, right? So figuring out what are some of the best ways that I can help move the needle. I personally love podcasting. I listen to a ton of podcasts. It's the medium that I choose to like mostly consume content in. I don't watch YouTube a ton. I don't read a ton of blogs or newsletters or anything like that. The way I prefer to consume media and share media is primarily through podcasting. And it's a really intimate medium. You know, people who are with us at this point who've listened for, 30, 40 minutes or so, they feel like they know us. They feel like they have some type of connection with you and I, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not going to spend 30, 40 minutes reading a newsletter or an article. I'm just not. And even like a YouTube video, like every single person who clicks on a YouTube link, if a friend sends it to them, it's like, oh, you gotta check this out. This is a crazy video or an interesting video or whatever. Like everybody looks at the corner first and like, how long is this? And anything more than a couple minutes is just like, oh man, this thing is like.
I had a friend, bro. He used to send me these videos an hour long, and I'm like, man, yeah. who has time for that?
Ain't nobody got time for that, Right? So, but
yeah.
An hour podcast or a 30-minute podcast, like people will listen to that, and so it's a medium I personally enjoy. I enjoy being on both sides of the microphone. We do a lot of interviews. We give a lot of interviews, and so it's a medium that's worked well for us.
Awesome. I believe everyone has a unique power. And, God gives it to you. The universe gives it to you. You learn it through life. Whatever it is, doesn't matter how you acquired. You go then give that power to the world, and then the world gives you back something in return that's equally as amazing. What's your power?
Good question. I'll give you two answers. One is I think I do a very good job building teams and leading people. And so been really intentional with the Speaker Lab that I want this to be the best place that people ever work. The reality is everybody's got to do something. Everybody's got to work somewhere. And so most people are probably going to do a variety of things over the course of their career. It's, as a business owner, it's hard to find great people and to retain great people because they have good options. There's other places they could work. They could start their own thing. They could do their own thing, whatever. Totally. Absolutely. And so I'm really, really intentional about telling people, I want to make it really, really hard for you to leave. Like, not in a manipulative way, but like, I never want you. I'll give you an example. There's a team member I was talking to recently, and he's been with us a little over a year. And he said, this is the first job I've had where I'm not thinking about my next job. And my foot's not out the door. I had someone else on our team, a high level person, who forwarded me an email. This was just over the weekend, a couple of days ago, for an email list that they're on. And a different company was looking for a high-level marketing role, which he would be amazing at, be a great fit at. And he said a few years ago, I would have been all over something like this. And now, like, not even interesting, not even appealing, because I love what we're doing here. In the past almost 2 years, we've got 30-something team members. We haven't had anybody leave. Like, people we've been really intentional about the culture and creating the type of environment where people are like, dang, this place is legit. So I think I've done a good job with that. I think that's a superpower. More than that, though, I'd say the thing that I'm really deeply passionate about is I tell our team regularly that who you are is more important than what you do. Who you are is more important than what you do. Meaning, if you and I are great podcasters, if we're great entrepreneurs, if we're great speakers, if we're great fill in the blank, but we drop the ball as husbands, as wives, as moms, as dads, as sons, as daughters, if we are a shell of a human being, we are doing it wrong. So like I mentioned, I'm married to my high school sweetheart. We've been together 26 years, been married 21 years. We got 3 daughters, 16, 14, 12. I'm in my own Barbie dream house. It's the best. I love it. And as much as I love building a business, as much as I love podcasting, as much as I love talking shop and life like we've done here, my most important roles are being an amazing husband and being an amazing father. Like, that's really, really important. And so that's a big, big deal to me, because ultimately, like, man, if I crush it in business and my bank account has a bunch of zeros on it, but like my girls don't have a relationship with me and my marriage is falling apart, like, it's not worth it. Not worth it at all. So that's the stuff that ultimately really matters.
You are the person that the people who live in your walls think you are. That's who you are. That's good. You can fake it everywhere else. You can fake it at work. You can fake it at your church, at your synagogue. You can fake it everywhere.
Yeah.
But you can't fake it at home, because that's where you come and you let it all go.
Yep.
So if they think you're a shithead, you're a shithead.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's true.
That's just what it is. That's just, I 100% agree with you. Those are my first 2 are dad and husband. I wake up, I say them to myself every day. So outside, and then everything else comes after that.
Yeah.
You know, I think part of particularly the father piece, you know, is you got to show your kids what work looks like, not tell them what work looks like. They got to see dad work. They got to, you know, see, you know, and mom too, if that's mom.
And to that end, like we tell the girls all the time, like, listen, we have a great life, but it's not because we were given anything or we have any handouts or we won the lottery or anything like that. Like mom and dad have worked really, really hard to get to this point. And also reminding them, like, I remember hearing one time a quote, I think it was from, I've heard a couple people say it, but like, I think I originally heard it from Will Smith, and he was talking to his kids, and his kids are like, "Oh, dad, we're rich." And he's like, no. Me and mom are rich. You're broke. You ain't got nothing. And so reminding like our family and our girls are just like, mom and dad have built a great life because we've worked hard for that. We've been intentional about that. We've set goals and worked towards those things. And like your life can be great too, but you can't ride on the coattails of mom and dad. Like you got to work and earn your way as well.
Yeah. I think Shaq originally said it. He was boy, I'm rich. You ain't rich. We ain't rich. I'm rich. Yep. You want to get rich? You come to me with an idea. If I like your idea and you have a plan, I'll invest in that. And then maybe we will be rich, but we ain't fucking rich.
Yep. So true. So good.
Grant, man, I appreciate you coming on. Tell everyone, man, if you want to be a speaker, if you are a speaker, anything like that, where can they reach out to you for some help?
Yeah, we touched on this earlier. Everything we do is over at thespeakerlab.com, thespeakerlab.com. I mentioned the podcast, the Speaker Lab podcast, the book, again, Successful Speaker, 5 Steps for Booking Gigs, Getting Paid, Building Your Platform. Check it out. But yeah, holler at me if there's anything I can do to help you, support you on your speaking journey. And we'd love to help you make an impact and income with your message.
Awesome. Man, I appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Guys, as always, Grant has his unique power, his gift that he goes out and he gives to the world. And I have my unique power and gift that I go out and I give to the world. Don't go out in the world and try to be Grant. Don't go out in the world and try to be me. Please go out there, everyone, and find your own power. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. I hope you found something useful that you can take and implement into your life. Don't forget to head over to wherever you are listening to this podcast and leave a review. That would be greatly appreciated. Also, go follow me on social media at FireMarshal205 on Instagram. Leave a comment, anything that you would like there. And as always, if you think this would be useful for somebody else that you know for their life, send it their way. That would be greatly appreciated. That's it for this episode, guys. I hope you all have a great day and you go step into that power so that you can give your purpose to the world.